Film, gaming, pop culture. This is Everything is Permitted, episode 7. Welcome to the show. My name is Julian Brown, your host, alongside my co-host, Matt Reppert. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. Well, wait, having me back. That sounds like I'm a guest. Jeez.
I mean, we're all guests.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
You know, we're guests here at our new digs at Wade's Comic Madness. The second week recording here. Mm-hmm. We are, Matt was mentioning it before the show, we're not in the first basement.
We're in the second basement.
The secondary basement. If you thought that we were surrounded by interesting, geeky nerd things last week, this is I think where either things go to die or things go to live. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I mean, this place has more stuff in it, more nerd stuff than I really thought was possible. I mean, I'm looking at figurines of various comic book characters and all sorts of comics, and my God, there's a lot of stuff in here, which I find very impressive.
Yeah, the amount of stuff that I see, and there's always something new. But like we said last week, Wade's Comic Madness in Fairless Hills, you will find what you want here. And if you don't, for God knows what reason, Wade will order it for you.
Yes, he will.
You might be able to hear them in the background, you might not. But we are also sharing the space this Sunday as we record with the 5e Dungeons & Dragons group that comes here every week. And they are doing like a 2-day charity gaming session. So they were here last night. I'm going to talk about this because I did something really cool last night.
Oh, nice.
And they're here this afternoon, and I think they're doing some raffles along with their gaming.
Cool.
So I say it every week. There's always something new in nerd, and I had, I think, an exciting 48 hours. At home, we had, I think, like we were getting our floors redone.
Yeah.
And someone needed to stay at the house. So that was me. Karen took the kids to our friend's house, and I manned the fort. Mm-hmm. And I watched and got into heavily, and it's a week too late because we did our Halloween episode last week, but I binged The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
My wife has been watching that.
Oh my
I've heard
God.
different things from different people.
It is so good. I mean, you'll hear from different people. Like, the first 6 episodes are the best, and then it kind of goes downhill. The whole thing was just absolutely fantastic. I loved every single minute of it. Probably one of the best horror anythings I've ever watched, because it's not just like I wouldn't say any of the scares are cheap. Of course, like I think everything has some cheap scares.
Yeah.
But this is such a psychological mindfuck of a show. Yeah.
I have actually Heather and I last night. I mean, once again, it's a little late for Halloween, and I wish I had seen it before. But the movie Hereditary.
Okay.
Which it's funny. It doesn't really have any jump scares, which it relies on the slow burn of like unsettling things. And then near the end, it ramps up the like, oh my God, like this is like creepy as shit.
Yeah.
And it legit surprised me with how good a horror movie it was.
This is a Netflix one?
We got it from Redbox.
Oh,
it came out in theaters, earlier in the year and all that. As I said in the last episode, Heather's a big fan of that stuff. I'm not, but this movie actually grabbed me a little bit. Like there was a lot of unsettling stuff in it.
I'll have to watch it. Yeah, I binge watched, I think, like the first 4 episodes before Karen got home. They were all done with the floors, and then I stayed up stupidly till 2 a.m. Went to bed freaked out after, I think, like episode 6 or 7, and I finished watching it last night.
Okay.
Which is interesting, because the first night I went to bed freaked out, and I was like, oh God, this was the stupidest idea I could have ever come up with to watch this right before I go to sleep. But last night, as they wrapped everything up, the show wraps up on like as happy an ending a horror show can have. Mm-hmm. Like, it wraps up everything very nicely.
Okay.
So I went to bed. I was like, okay, like, good. Like, I wasn't freaked out at all. The last 2 episodes were so much like of a wrap up instead of like still trying to really scare you. It's like in the horror movie when you get all the big reveals.
Yeah.
And that's what these last 2 episodes were. So I finished it yesterday. I highly recommend it if you're into horror. The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. 10 episodes. It's a nice quick binge. If that is your thing.
Okay.
Also, I came here last night to Wade's. I'm big into like collectible card games, collectible strategy games. I said I play Destiny. I also play X-Wing miniatures. Fantasy Flight Games, who does both of those, just came out with a new game. Something like this. It's called Keyforge. It's never.
I've heard the name.
Yeah.
I've heard the name.
What they're doing with this game, it's never been done before. Instead of deck building and having to basically pay to play to like get the best cards, you buy a deck for $10 of 37 cards. Okay. Every single deck in a pack, like if you go to the store and say I'm buying a deck, is completely random every single time. So you don't know what you're getting. And when you buy that deck, that is the deck that you play with. The game is absolutely zero deck building. So right now, like let's say after the show, you and I wanted to go upstairs and buy a deck. I'd buy a deck, you'd buy a deck. Those are the cards that we would play with. I played last night, and it's some of the most fun I've ever had in a card game because there's no extra frills. It's just cards.
Yeah.
You have to have tokens for like damage, and the whole point of the game is in the name, Keyforge. You have to forge 3 keys to win. There's battles. There's stealing these embers, which are what you use to forge the keys. There's stealing of those and stacking them up, and all sorts of strategy on how to get them.
Yeah.
Like, there's characters. Like, I was playing a character yesterday where if that character died, when it says defeated, I get 2 embers to go towards my keys.
Okay.
It's fast paced, not in the sense that games can't be long, but your turns, like you don't just do one thing per turn. So there's houses in the game, and during each turn you have cards from 3 different houses. Before you take your turns, you say, I'm pledging my allegiance to this house.
Okay.
And then you can only play cards from that house that are in your hand. You'll have other houses cards in your hand, but you can only play with the ones that you played allegiance to that round.
Now, out of curiosity, what's to stop you? Like, how would you know that the decks you buy, like if I buy like 2 separate decks and say, I like the cards from this deck, I want to put them in with
You can't do it.
Well, how would you know? Like, what
Honor
prevents
system,
you from
and
doing?
if you do it at a tournament, there's a QR codes, and you scan the deck into a system. And I think like if you were playing in like a tournament, like, they check beforehand.
Okay.
And like you can get in big trouble. And apparently, what I understand in a tournament setting, because it's a pre-made deck, and I'm sure some play better than others.
Yeah.
If you're doing too well with a deck, you'll get handicapped in a tournament situation. Like, so there's some things in the game called chains, where it prevents you from taking a certain amount of cards into your hand. And that basically handicaps you a little bit. So if you're dominating, they're like, okay, you can only take so many cards.
Yeah.
It's really fun because each turn you can do as many things as you want as you have those cards in your hand. So if I have like, there's like a group, a house in the game called Shadows. If I have like, 5 shadow cards in my hand, I can play every single one of those if I choose to before it goes to the next person. It's fast paced. It's tons of fun. We should play it at some point. And,
I'd have to see it in action before I could decide to jump in.
We have PAX East coming up. So before PAX, we'll be doing some live streams with some of the Wade's crew that comes and plays. That's something I want to mention before we get to the permitted minute is we do have PAX coming up. So we will have live coverage from there. We're going to be talking to some people there, some live streams there. So stay tuned for all those details. Those are the 2 exciting things I had. I thought both the show and the game were particularly fun. Anything? Oh yeah, you called me very excited about something.
Oh god, I can't even think, man. I was up till 5 a.m. in the morning today.
Best Buy. You apparently got a good
Oh
deal
yeah,
on.
I actually I'm always in the hunt for Steelbooks. I know we've talked about this, and I it's funny because about this time last year, I remember thinking to myself, like, these Steelbook things are stupid. I am not gonna do this, and I wasn't into the 4K thing. Now I am pretty much in over my head with the amount of Steelbook crap that I've bought. Because like yesterday, or not yesterday, but the other day at Best Buy I always, I go into Best Buy and I, see what they have on sale and things like that. And I also have started going to FYE in my local mall,
at the mall.
Yeah, which I didn't even think they were in business anymore, to be honest with you.
There's I think they completely redid their store.
They redid their store. They're kind of focused
kish,
on used media and stuff like that. You can get like shows cheap. I actually got both seasons of one of my favorite shows of all time a couple months ago, Dead Like Me. Used DVDs, and I love that show, and if you've never seen it, I highly recommend you watch it. But I actually got my hands on Steelbooks of I got a couple movies. I got the Gremlins, the first Gremlins movie. I got that on Steelbook. I have not seen that movie in forever.
I couldn't remember the last time I saw it.
I honestly couldn't remember the last time I sat down and watched it, but I remember thinking to myself, I need a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
I want some Christmas movies because, we have obviously Christmas coming up and the holidays and all that. So I wanted some Christmas movies to talk about in future episodes. So I got the first Gremlins movie, which I plan to sit down and watch. I also bought the Steelbook from Best Buy of The Polar Express, which is
the Tom Hanks one?
Hanks one with the Uncanny Valley motion captured actors. I saw Polar Express in theaters. I enjoyed the hell out of it. And I know a lot of people thought that it was like over the top, but like literally the book is like 15, 20 pages if I remember correctly. Yeah. It's a children's book, so they had to do something.
Well, it's like turning The Hobbit into 3 movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Hobbit at least was a book. It was a thick book I could beat a man to death with. But I mean, the Polar Express it's like 15 pages, and I enjoyed the movie. And honestly, I'm probably going to include it as one of my Christmas classics that I will watch around the holidays. I bought it last year. However, they put out a Steelbook, and I'm very tempted to get another copy and just give away my old one. But they have a Steelbook of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which is probably so one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time, if not my most favorite.
The sledding scene is like probably one of my favorite movies.
Oh my god! Like almost every scene is like the whole thing with the squirrel is just freaking hilarious to me. And they also, and I have no intention of buying it, which is kind of funny because I used to love the movie, but they have the Steelbook of A Christmas Story that I thought it got so overplayed. I couldn't like every Christmas 24 hours of marathon of A Christmas Story. So I saw that and I was just like, ugh. Like,
why not?
I almost did just to have it. You didn't. But I didn't for that one. However, 2 movies that I did order directly from the website, and I'm pretty sure they're in Britain because it takes about a week and a half for me to get the orders. But I got the Steelbook of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Which we were talking about, yes.
Yeah, which is probably on my top 10 list of some of my favorite movies ever. It's like it's an updated quote unquote retelling of the Odyssey. Yeah. That's exactly what it is, because John Goodman plays the Cyclops, if you will. He's like a one-eyed Bible salesman and all that. And I love the soundtrack. Probably one of my favorite soundtracks of any movie ever. Also, I ordered last night the Steelbook UK limited edition, because there's only about 2,000 of them made, of a movie called 71, which I am very excited to watch. I haven't seen it. I was telling you about it before, but 71 is, if you don't know anything about it, and I've only seen reviews of it and clips here and there that I've watched online, takes place in 1971 in a period that people kind of forget about in Europe called the Troubles in Ireland. Because basically in the 70s through the 80s, the IRA, which people kind of forget existed these days, but they were a very vicious terrorist group. And obviously the movie takes place in Belfast, which is in Northern Ireland, which, back in the day was the scene of a lot of violence between the IRA.
The U2 song Sunday Bloody Sunday is like all about like
there's actually a lot of, I think the song Zombie by the Cranberries is actually about the IRA and all that stuff that they did. But basically 71 takes place in Belfast in Northern Ireland right about the time the Troubles begin. And essentially a British soldier and his platoon are sent into Belfast to quell rioting and such that's been started, the IRA is a part of. And he basically gets separated from his platoon for the night. And the IRA is obviously hunting this dude because they want to kill him and make an example out of him. And any review I've ever seen said it is a thrilling movie, very suspenseful.
Oh, you haven't actually seen it?
I haven't watched it.
Oh,
I have not watched it.
Maybe we'll watch it together.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching it. Any review of it I've seen. I know one reviewer who I really like called it like one of his favorite movies of last year. I think is when it came out. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. It'll be here in like another week or so. And another 1 or 2 movies that I got actually is I got the Steelbooks of The Fantastic Mr. Fox, a movie which, funny enough, I've seen most of it, but I haven't sat down and watched it. But it has very dry, kind of highbrow humor.
It's like dry British humor.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those things that like the more I kind of learn about how it was made, the more I really enjoy the movie, because I learned that when they recorded the actors' lines, they weren't in a sound studio. They literally just had them in rooms, And then because they wanted it to sound natural, and then they would basically, give them the script and say like, all right, do this. And there's a really funny part in Mr. Fox where he and Bill Murray are talking to each other, and Bill Murray plays a badger, and George Clooney is Mr. Fox, and they're talking about legal issues. And this is really early on in the movie, so it's not spoiling anything, where basically instead of swearing, they say cuss, and he goes like, and George Clooney is just like, I'm going to listen to your advice, I'm going to ignore it. And Bill Murray just goes, the cuss you are. And he goes, the cuss am I? No, the cusser. And then they start growling and hissing. And you just picture Bill Murray and George Clooney in a room and he's like, rah, 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 like making... And it's so freaking funny. And I also ordered The Isle of Dogs, which is the other stop-motion animated movie that came out.
Both Wes Anderson, right?
Yes, yeah. Both Wes Anderson movies. Both have like that kind of highbrow humor. Yeah. Where it's not just like, guy fall down, guy funny. It's that little bit of like, you have to think about, like kind of like Monty Python, where there's that, and I've always been a fan of that kind of
mine.
Yeah, so I haven't seen Isle of Dogs. I haven't watched it at all, so I'm looking forward to watching that. I'm looking forward to watching 71.
We should just have like a movie day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got a lot of older movies. I know we talked about Beetlejuice last episode.
I totally dropped the ball on. It was like $7.99 on iTunes for a limited time, and I just fucked it up and didn't get it. I totally forgot to get it, which annoys me a little bit.
Yeah.
My boom keeps. We finally have our new boom arm and stuff, and I'm getting used to it. It's still a little stiff, so it keeps running away on me. So if my voice keeps going out, that's why. But we're all fancy here now.
Yeah, again, we're getting there.
Which is nice. It's nice to have it. So with that, I think it's time for
the permitted minute,
and we will start in 3, 2, 1, go.
Matt Smith, who was cast in J.J. Abrams' Episode 9, is rumored to be playing a young Emperor Palpatine in the film. More on that after the minute.
Staying in a galaxy far, far away, Diego Luna will reprise his role as Captain Cassian Andor in an ongoing live-action series on Disney's new streaming service, which is going to be a prequel to Rogue One. On top of that service, we have a name and a timetable. Disney Plus, that's so original, will launch late in 2019.
As of right now, Avengers 4 sits at a mere 3-hour runtime. The film is only halfway edited, so that absolutely could change. Going into gaming, Red Dead Redemption 2 has shipped over 17 million copies in its first 3 days. Rockstar's Western sequel/prequel made over $725 million. The game made more in 3 days than Avengers Infinity War.
Andy Bean, who has also starred in Friday the 13th and the upcoming sequel to It, will be playing the title role in the upcoming Swamp Thing reboot. We did it.
We did it again.
But it was a little closer.
It was a little closer.
We only had like 3 seconds left.
Ooh, we slid in there.
That's good though.
Yeah, the Swamp Thing like intrigues me a little bit. I remember that old Swamp Thing movie.
That's what I remember, and I remember there was a cartoon, but I remember the movie just being like super weird.
Yeah. I mean, God damn, it's probably been like 20 plus years since I've seen this one. Probably almost closer to 30 actually since I've seen it.
It's old.
Yeah, it's old.
It might have come out before I was born.
It may have.
Well, that's why we have the internet. Let's see here. Let's see. Swamp Thing movie. I'm gonna say 84.
I'll say 80. I'll say 86. I'll say 86.
86. That's the year I was born.
See, those of you who didn't know what life was like before the internet, whenever questions like this came up, you just kind of were like, I think it was 84. I think it was 86. We'll never know. Let's move on with our lives.
And now we know. So I was a little closer. It was 1982.
Oh, damn. So the year I was born then.
Directed by the king of horror himself, Wes Craven.
Are you shitting me?
No, I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. Okay.
Yeah, so there is a Swamp Thing reboot coming out. I think we both kind of like
I just kind of shrug and go, whatever. I'll see. I mean, when they do a trailer or something like that, I'll make judgment.
My big thing is like, why? Like, do we need a Swamp Thing movie?
I guess DC's like, you know what? Let's just do whatever we can. Let's do a movie.
Yeah, let's go back to the swamp. Let's actually go into talking about these 2 big bits of Star Wars news. One of these excites me. One of these doesn't. The Matt Smith rumor going around right now that he's going to be playing a young Emperor Palpatine. Now, Well, yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. Like, but if you're gonna cast anyone to do it, like Matt Smith is a great choice.
No, the funny thing is that like I'm cool with Matt Smith being in Star Wars. I'm totally on board. Sign me up. You know, I'm not even a huge Doctor Who fan, and I know that he is a good actor.
Yeah,
that he's he's gonna do well in the role.
He plays King Philip in the Queen,
in the Crown.
Thank you, the Crown, not the Queen, and he's brilliant in that as well.
Yeah, I'm just. I hope and pray to God that this Emperor Palpatine thing is not true, because I'm tired. Like I don't know if I've said this before. I'm tired of Star Wars movies going back to the original trilogy and referencing the original trilogy just for those nerd points.
Well, my thing is like I don't even think they're going back to the original trilogy with this. I think that at the start of all this, when Disney bought it and they were going to make these movies, they said "fuck you" to the expanded universe and said we're not going to do anything from the books.
That was a stupid move.
Which was a stupid move because they still took aspects of the expanded universe and put them and made characters from the expanded universe canon in these films, but did it in this ass backwards way. Like you have Kylo and Ren. Good lord, Kylo and Rey, who seriously still could be revealed as brother and sister. I still believe it could happen. It's unlikely, but I think it could happen, which would be right out of the books. Palpatine had a huge influence in the books too. He was a clone, and that's
I know. I remember that.
So that's where I think they'd be going. I don't think this would be like
my feeling though is that introducing a young Emperor Palpatine clone basically alters the flow of your story now, because
it doesn't fit in.
It doesn't fit at all. And once again, as I said, you're pulling because doing this whole here's a young Emperor here's a young Palpatine clone, because then you very well could set up the whole just because he's a clone, is he good, is he evil? We're gonna have that little story thread in this as well. I mean,
I would hope not.
I would hope not as well, but I feel that could happen. And I mean, personally, I'm more interested in exploring the dynamic between Rey and Kylo Ren. Seeing that's something that they sort of kind of started to do in Last Jedi, but they basically just dropped it and said, we're back to just the good and evil aspect of the story. Like,
I just wish that they would decide what they want to do. Do they? I mean, I think with what Rian Johnson did with Last Jedi by killing off Luke, and he did give it to the future characters, so Luke and Rey. But if this is true, you can't do this in the third movie. You just can't. Even though Palpatine was technically
it's too much. It's introducing, because to me a young Emperor Palpatine is going to be one of two things as a character. A young Palpatine clone is because that's what he's going to be.
Yeah.
Is he's either going to be the new big bad villain that runs the First Order, or at least tries to run the First Order that Kylo Ren has to deal with, which it's way too late to introduce that. It's if you had done that in the first of the new trilogy, hey, we're cloning Palpatine.
If it wasn't Snoke and it was Palpatine, I would have bought it and been on board with it.
Yeah, I would have been okay, you're pulling from the expanded universe. All right, I might roll my eyes a little bit, but I would see how you'd play your hand with that. As I said, you're either going to do it where he's now trying to take over, or he's running the First Order, which introducing a character like that and just being oh, by the way, we cloned Palpatine, he's now running the First Order. That'd be wait, what just happened? What happened between these two movies? I feel like we missed way more interesting
without
stuff.
Dropping any hints.
At
least movies that are going to do something like that will drop hints in the first or second movie, which there's been none of.
As I said, he's either going to be that character, or he's going to be the whole hey, we found this clone of Palpatine. He's young and confused. He doesn't know what he wants to do. And this and that. We're going to try and make him good to unite the galaxy and all that. And then some people be oh no, he's a clone of Palpatine. He's evil. And as I said, you're going to have that dynamic of, is he going to be a good guy or is he going to be a bad guy? Which to me diverts from the Rey Kylo Ren story.
People hate on Last Jedi so much, and this news, if true, would make me hate on J.J. Abrams and hate on this movie, because I loved Last Jedi. I thought it was perfect. No, I don't know. Okay, I don't think it was perfect.
we are going to have some disagreements on that.
I think it did what it was supposed to do, and I know not everyone agrees with that.
Yeah.
My big thing is do one or the other. Either stay with like whatever original ideas you had about Rey and Kylo, or have started with the expanded universe and taken something like the heir to the Empire trilogy from Timothy Zahn and done something like that. But don't like bastardize like
my honest issue that I had with Last Jedi and how they're doing the trilogy is that they're basically taking stuff from the original trilogy and kind of crapping on it. And because, like, one of the biggest problems that I had with Last Jedi is the fact that Rey was in no way trained by Luke. And essentially, all of the training that Luke did with Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back is essentially, now it's just like, why did Luke even need to train? Because Yoda basically Force Ghosts to Luke and says, oh yeah, she knows all she needs to know. Like, she's fine. Just let her go. And I mean, if I was Luke, I'd be like, are you shitting me, Yoda? Like, what about all that time in the swamps in Dagobah where you taught me to control my emotions and do this and do that with the Force? And she's good. She knows it all right off the top of her head. Like, she's just that great at it.
Well, which makes me still think that, listen, if Rey ends up being a nobody, like, fine. Like, fine. If she's a nobody, she's a nobody. But it still leaves it open that she really is someone, and maybe she is just, like, inherently good, you know? There's so many what ifs. This is why I hate when people, like, not you, but when people hate on a second movie, because you don't know what's going to happen until that third movie comes out. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen in J.J. Abrams' Episode 9. Like, I have no clue.
No.
And I'm fine with that. But don't hate on this movie yet, even though it threw away some things that J.J. Abrams was working on. Because people say, well, Rian Johnson didn't consult or didn't have... J.J. Abrams had no input. Bullshit. Trust me. Even though they say they didn't, these people are all working together. Yeah. There is a common plan. Episode 9 isn't just going to be like, oh shit, now I have to like repair all this work. No. Episode 8 was very specific in what it was doing, and I think Episode 9 is going to wrap that up, and I think people are going to go back to Last Jedi and figure out, remember, Force Awakens was freaking fantastic. I think you have to wait for the third movie to really form an opinion.
I understand that, but I mean, let's be honest here, is that when people saw, you know, and I know it's kind of not fair to compare it, but when people saw Empire Strikes Back, were people like, I need to wait until see the third movie to really judge this movie? Like, it was a great movie.
People in like articles, like, Empire was not well received at first, and then later on, like, now it's like the best Star Wars movie of all time.
Yeah.
Because the story wasn't complete yet. I think Last Jedi is a very good movie.
I said this before, at least I'm pretty sure I did, is I'm tired of them going back and going to the well of the original trilogy. Give me something new. Give me something fresh. Give me something original. I mean, I remember that whole talk about, like, they were doing, you know, the Knights of the Old Republic or something like that a while back. You know, I was so pumped for that. I would love to see the Jedi back in their prime and the Sith running around and all that stuff like that.
Well, that could still be happening.
It could be. Yeah, I mean, I know that Bob Iger, you know, the CEO of Disney, said they're slowing down on the Star Wars stuff.
But Rian Johnson's new trilogy is still going forward.
I mean, I'm curious to see what they do with it. I mean, you got to do... I would love to see Knights of the Old Republic. Just stay away from the original trilogy, for the love of God. Like Solo, like, oh, Han Solo just before the original trilogy. And I liked Rogue One, and Solo was an okay movie. I didn't hate it.
Yeah, Rogue One's my favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah, and, you know, Rogue One, obviously... Like, Rogue One basically did the... Like, it touched on the original trilogy, but it did it in a somewhat interesting and new way. Like, you know, other than the whole ending with Princess Leia and all that stuff like that, you know, and I actually thought the very clever use of the pilots from the original Star Wars movie in the scenes and them using that, like, that was clever. Great? That was clever to do that, because then it'd be like, oh wait, where all these pilots go in the Death Star battle? You know?
Yeah.
So that was clever, and I was cool with how Rogue One did it, but just... Please stop. Like, please stop mining the original trilogy. Do something new, for the love of God.
Well, speaking of Rogue One, Disney also just announced the Cassian Andor series, which I said on Facebook is already my new favorite show on television, and they haven't even filmed an episode yet.
I honestly am very blah about it, because the thing is, I know how a story ends. Like, I know what happens to him. Like,
but I still think there's some really... Like, okay, so, like, people have been wanting, like, a Star Wars Underworld movie forever, and I think they're going to get that with this show, because Cassian Andor wasn't just like a rebel soldier. He was a spy, and he says it in the movie. Like, he's done some really bad things.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see that. Because I'm sure they're going to have a younger Saul Guerrero or whatever.
Saul Guerrero.
Saul Guerrero, thank you, Jesus. Yep. Saul Guerrero, running around. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I'm interested. I want to see some trailers. I want to see what we're talking about here before. I'm not judging the show, but it boils down to the fact that I know how his story ends. And
I think it opens up, though. I think it possibly opens up seeing some characters from Rebels show up on there.
Yeah,
it's going to be in that time frame.
No, I get that, and I still haven't watched the last season of Rebels, and I really should. And I enjoyed Rebels quite a bit, and Rebels obviously takes place before the original trilogy, but as I said, I would like something away from the original trilogy. Stop doing it before the original trilogy or in between the movies or whatever. And I'll withhold my final judgment until I see a trailer or something like that, or maybe even watch an episode or two, and then I can say like, all right, I like this, I don't like this, or
yeah.
So
I'm stoked for it. I don't think they gave us any kind of time frame for that yet.
No, probably. I mean, I would say probably, yeah. I mean, sometime next year at the earliest. So
yeah, because the streaming service doesn't launch till 2019, late 2019. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our main story. We have been hearing a lot before Red Dead 2 about the not so good situations and working conditions in the video game industry. The first big story that broke was before Red Dead was with Mass Effect Andromeda and the working conditions there with BioWare.
Yeah.
And how all this moving around and this crunch time, led to a bad game coming out. Well, some people thought it was a bad game. I didn't think it was a bad game.
Wasn't terrible, but it wasn't even close to what Mass Effect was supposed to be.
That's true. What it comes down to, and where a lot of these stories happen, is apparently this period in game making called the crunch period, where final touches are being put into the game, all the hours are being put on. There are a lot of people in the industry and outside of the industry that believe that it's not a good labor practice, while others who are putting in, let's say, 100-hour work days, like people said they did on Red Dead 2, who kind of wear it as a badge of honor, saying like, I love this game and I put all of this effort into it and I'm proud of the hours I put in. But you do get complaints, and no matter what, a 100-hour work week is just not healthy.
No, that's not healthy
for anyone. I'm curious where you stand on what we've been. It's been kind of a slow roll of like this news coming out about.
My thing is that I've kind of been aware of this for a few years now, of the video game industry, the dark, seedy underbelly of it. And the thing is that the video game industry chews people up and spits them out. I mean, without mercy, without pity, without regret. It crushes souls, and there are numerous stories out there. And there was this, the makers of Penny Arcade did this comic that I kind of grew to dislike because, for whatever reasons, called The Trenches, where they actually had a segment below, which they haven't updated recently, where game developers, people that work in the video games industry, could send them anonymous emails about what was going on in their industry. And some people would make very big things about like working for certain companies or certain video game things or whatever like that, and would tell their horror stories about how they were treated, about like, and I mean, these stories range from like people being fired without warning, without cause, because of minutia, because of some minor thing, just because they didn't want to pay them severance packages and things like that. The video game industry is run by a lot of scum, and it pains me to say that because, obviously I love video games, but a lot of video game companies are run by complete shitlords. And honestly, yes, I know there are some employees at Rockstar that say they wear it as a badge of honor, but I can promise you, like, I mean, just between you and me, like, no matter how much I love a thing, I don't think I could do it for 100 hours a week, especially work like coding and testing, and there's no way you find that enjoyable.
Well, not only not finding it enjoyable, but like that is not good for your health.
No.
I mean, I know standing desks are a big thing now, but it's not just the standing and the sitting. I mean, the eye strain alone. Like, how many times have you, binging a game? I've done it. Sat in front of the TV too long and like your eyes start to hurt, or like, it's not healthy to be looking at a screen or to be doing that kind of stuff for any long period of time like that. And 100, like, how many hours are in there? So 24 hours, 24 times.
I mean, you're talking. I mean, just the easiest way to think about it is that imagine the average work week is 40 hours a week. Double that, and then add 20 hours on top of that.
Yeah.
And then and then sit there and ask yourself, like, does that sound like something that you would like to do?
Yeah.
And then the problem with the video game industry is that they don't have, and without delving too deep into politics here, they don't have unions. They don't have people. They don't have an organization that stands up for their rights and says, "Hey, wait a minute." And I know that, and if you've ever watched him on YouTube, Jim Sterling has actually covered this topic quite a lot, and he's talked about it quite a bit. Basically, and he broke down how the voice actors, they have the Actors Guild. I forget what it's. I think it's
they do. Yeah.
Yeah. They basically have a union essentially that fights for better pay, for better recognition for all that they do for video games. Video game developers do not have that. The testers don't have that. So while the paid professionals,
sorry to interrupt, I think most employees in the video game industry do not have any, except the voice actors have that kind of representation. Because you can continue a second.
Yeah.
While it's on my mind, what happened? I forget the composer's name, who did the music for Destiny, and he had done all the Halo music as well. He was working on some amazing stuff, and most of his music still was used in Destiny 1.
Yeah.
But this is a guy that was beloved not only by the company, but by fans. Mm-hmm. And he was just fired unceremoniously. Marty O'Donnell.
Marty
O'Donnell.
Right, I got you.
Is the one who got fired. But like that's a situation where like no representation. He got fired basically for nothing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and basically, and Jim Sterling kind of said it best, is that if your industry requires people to work 100 hours a week leading up to the launch of their product, like, that industry is toxic. It shouldn't survive on that. It shouldn't survive on crunch. I understand sometimes people are going to work longer hours and such like that, but once again, the video game industry doesn't have that, the workers don't have that representation, so they don't get paid overtime a lot of times. They, if anything.
No, they don't get paid overtime. From what I understand, we were talking about how there's been, and you've heard some of them on YouTube, a lot of horror stories.
Yeah.
About, let's say BioWare, let's say maybe Rockstar. Rockstar's done
BioWare,
a really good job of keeping it all internalized, except for this hearing about these 100-hour work weeks. One thing that I read about, and I think was very well publicized during when things were coming out about Mass Effect Andromeda, was they were trying to do the crunch time, and BioWare were saying, you have to work these hours and hours. And now BioWare, because I think it's not legal for them to say it, said you don't have to work these hours.
But it's very important that you do. But it's
very important that you do. And I think most people did.
Mm-hmm.
Very, maybe not against their will, but, with complaint, but they did it. Then apparently with people who did complain about this and said, listen, like, I have a family. Like, I cannot work these hours.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get fired right away, but they were then frowned upon. Mm-hmm. And they were basically, I don't think there's like a physical like naughty list, but they were basically put on a list saying these are the people that did not volunteer to work extra hours. And then apparently they had some kind of like employee betterment committee, which was basically like the next step to getting fired. So they were basically under scrutiny and review, all because they decided not to work these extra hours during crunch time, which would lead to their firing. Because at the end of the day, guess what? It's a huge industry. There's always someone to fill that seat.
Yeah,
which is what's disgusting in itself.
No, and that's, I mean, because I haven't seen one of those recently, but I mean, how many of those commercials that I see over the last few years where it was like, quote unquote game developer,
Yeah.
school commercials, and it's like, hey, can you imagine we're getting paid to play video games? And it's just like, that's not how it works
God,
at all.
no.
I mean, I don't even work in the industry, and I can tell you that testing a video game is freaking terrible. It is
Yeah.
a terrible thing to do. I respect the hell out of people that do it, that can stomach it. Because, people think like, oh, you just, if you're a video game tester, you get to sit down and play video games. Like, partially true, but not. Because
No.
literally,
You're not playing a finished product. You are playing it to figure out everything that's wrong.
yes,
with it.
and basically that's what happens is that they'll give you the video game. You'll have a workstation, and then somebody will have an email to what'll happen is they'll say, all right, the developers finished this level, play this level, and then they'll be like, oh, we think there might be a bug that if you jump 500 times in this one place that the game will crash. You need to jump 500 times in that one place and see if it crashes.
Yeah.
That's the crap that a tester does. And people who don't know that, congratulations. If you didn't know that, now you know that. And if you're thinking about getting in the video game industry, just be aware that it's very monotonous. It's a job.
And like think about the people that do that all those hours and test those games and are trying to find bugs, and then like me, I fire up AC Odyssey and I'm finally off Catalonia, and I'm in my first naval battle and I jump off my boat and dive into the ship and can't get out. So these people bust their ass hours upon hours upon hours upon hours, and the game still doesn't launch perfect. So what does that say?
Well, that comes from, and once again, like going to the trenches, the stories that I've seen, like because some testers had written in there, and they talked about like I found a bug and it did this, and they tag it and send it to a developer and say, hey, this happens when I did this. And what'll happen is that the developer will be like, it'll take too much time, it'll cost too much to fix. We'll worry about it later. We'll patch it later.
Yeah, like day one.
And that's exactly what happens with there is that sometimes like a lot of those bugs that you see, like they were seen in development, but basically it was like just deemed it's too time consuming to figure out how to fix it.
And also, it's too time consuming, and what are the chances of that? Like, will lightning strike twice? Like, I could do that same naval battle over again and never jump, never clip into that ship.
No, yeah, I get you.
And I'm not saying that's a good thing. It's not.
No, it's a terrible thing.
Yeah, it's just, it's absolutely. I am always amazed when I fire up a video game, especially like what's been coming out, like Spider-Man, Red Dead, and AC Odyssey. These gigantic games. I'm like, I have no idea how these are made and how they are made this well, with not only with what's going on, but just like the sheer manpower to make a game like this. I mean, we're talking about ones and zeros at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That is a lot of ones and zeros.
No, because when I was in high school, almost 20 years ago, when I was in high school, I remember we had to debate and argue a topic in front of our class, and my topic was, are video games art? And I pretty much was roundly disagreed with by the entire class. That like pretty much everybody said that video games aren't art. But go watch something. I mean, go watch like cutscenes from Red Dead 2 or Witcher 3 or or Spider-Man or those high profile games, and look at the artistry that goes into it. Like, you might not consider it art just because, a team of people of, dozens or hundreds in some cases work on it, but it's still
crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because theater is art, and that's a bunch of people working on a project.
Yeah.
TV and movies, it's the same goddamn.
Yeah, I mean, because the reason I argued this was because back in high school was the age-old argument of like, do video games cause violence in kids and such like that, and should they be protected under art and free speech, like anything else? And my argument was they should be, and you got to remember, this is back in the late '90s when I made this argument. So games look, back then, like you had like Half-Life 1 came out in 1998, and it looked amazing for the time. And my argument was basically like, look, it's like people pour their heart and souls into these things. And in some cases, they are art. Just because it's not right of me to say they're not art, but yet something like I can't say that like video games aren't art, and like something like War, which was big back then, like that War is or isn't art. Like, that's not my call to make. But I mean, everybody in my class pretty much disagreed with me. Like, because I remember one girl was like, well, they like the school shooters, like the Columbine shooters, like played like Doom and stuff like that. I'm like, that's not That's not, that's not the game's fault that they, that
Someone
they
could
like
have
do.
easily seen like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And like I'm sure someone has seen one of these shooters has seen Pulp Fiction, and that didn't,
Yeah.
it's apples and oranges.
Yeah, and going back to the original topic at hand, I am very much I do believe the video game industry needs more representation of its vulnerable employees. It needs, some kind of union or something like that, and the problem is that that they will clamp down on that if they tried to start one, because the moment that they catch wind that some testers are like getting together after work and are saying like, hey, look, we need to demand better pay, and let's start networking and get all this other stuff and better benefits and all. I mean, as I said, there's so many horror stories, but
talk about like representation. Let's talk about that a little bit, because the whole 100-hour work week thing came up because of Red Dead 2 and Rockstar, but Rockstar also seems to be a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
They let their employees talk about working conditions and stuff on social media. I can't name any names. I tried to get a guest on the show. Unfortunately, she could not come on. As you can imagine, the industries have all sorts of NDAs and non-disclosure agreements. It would be a bitch to get anyone from the gaming industry to come talk about not necessarily the good things about the industry. So, but he told me like NDAs, all sorts of craziness. But what I can say is that person is, was very active on social media talking about the game and, their love for it and how excited they were for it. So they get to talk, like Rockstar employees get to talk about their game. Now, do you think that's a start? Do you think that's a good thing?
Well, I haven't delved into the Rockstar and post, but I know that it seemed like they did that to counteract the stories that were coming about the 100-hour work weeks. And I haven't, as far as I know, it's only been the positive people who are like, oh, I'm so dedicated to this game. I love working the 100-hour work weeks. And my thing is that part of me thinks that there's no way that that's real. Like that's like somebody who was basically told like, hey, look, throw up a little post and like say that, you work in this, or at least was told to know in certain terms that, hey, look, we need some good PR from this. It doesn't look good. Because, I mean, I haven't waded into the Rockstar employees posts or anything, but are any of them negative? Are any of them like, oh my God?
If they were, they would be anonymous.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that Rockstar, quote unquote, lets them talk about it, but only if it's positive. Like if Rockstar was like, look, anybody can say anything about this, and there will be no repercussions, I would respect them for that. I would be like, you know what? You guys are getting ahead of it. You're trying to maybe make it better. You're trying to do this. But if it's only positive stuff, then you might as well be a North Korean propaganda broadcast.
And that's the question, right? Like, don't they deserve some kind of, like, all the man hours and all the effort and all the work and these stupid work weeks? Don't they deserve some kind of outlet to be able to talk about it?
They absolutely do. And it's a shame to me that they have to be anonymous to talk about the bad things that are happening in their industry. I mean, it's an absolute travesty that that people can be mistreated like that, and they have to be anonymous to talk about it because they don't want to get blacklisted and be like, oh yeah, here's that little pissant developer guy that worked on Red Dead 2 that talked about the 100-hour work weeks. We're not going to hire him for our next project. We're not going to have him work on our next game or anything like that. Like that's wrong to me.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like the only outlet they do have to talk negatively is either as an anonymous source or now there's these websites where you can actually go and review your workplace for other people to see, and that's where you're starting to see some of this. Like, and they can give them star reviews. So like, why am I blanking? I've played like every single Mass Effect BioWare like has bad reviews and people saying like I would like never recommend this as a workplace.
Yeah, like, and I know, and it pains me to say this. I think there's been some negative stuff coming about CG Project Red, which the makers of The Witcher and Cyberpunk 2077 and all that, and there's been some negative stuff coming out about them, which hurts my heart and heart of hearts because I love The Witcher and they always struck me as a very gamer oriented development company.
I've mentioned this a few times now. BioWare's came under, like, they were the first big, like, this is the big situations are not great in the gaming industry, and then everything there. I think that specific studio, actually, they folded that down. I think it was like BioWare Montreal.
Yeah,
or something.
I think so.
All these complaints have happened during this end time, basically called crunch time period of development. So you talked about some ideas. What else besides unions needs to change? How can it change? Is the money there to hire more developers? What's the best case scenario so you won't have all these people working stupid man hours for a video game?
I'm going to, for anybody who's like, oh, I don't know if the money's there. Red Dead Redemption 2 made $725 million in 3 days. Okay? 3 freaking days. Now, I understand not every game is going to make a fraction of that. But you cannot sit there and with a straight face, and not even, you know what, even take Red Dead 2 out of the equation. Like, let's say they're still making Red Dead 2. It hasn't come out yet. And now it's like, we might need to, like, force people to work 100-hour work weeks, or we might have to hire more people to, take the load off the developers that we currently have. Okay, it's like, well, that costs more money. Like, once again, going back to Rockstar, Grand Theft Auto 5 is the highest earning entertainment thing ever.
5 years later, too.
Yes, 5 years later, too. It still earns a crap ton of money. Probably not nearly what it did when the multiplayer first came out, but Rockstar has the coin to basically Rockstar could probably hire like almost the entire video game industry and still turn a profit on their game. And I don't have the figures in front of me, but like Bobby Kotick, who is the CEO of Activision, I believe it is, like his net worth is like several $1 billion. And this is a problem I have with the video game industry, is that they can, and I actually, again, I'm ashamed to admit this, got into an internet argument on a Facebook page about charity that a video game company was doing. Basically, it was the Call of Duty 4 was doing this little skin pack or whatever like that for guns and for players and stuff like that, and they said, all the proceeds will go to the veterans charity and to a veterans charity. We will not take a cent from that. And I piped up on their post and said, look, I said, that's all well and good. I said, but the only reason you guys are doing this, and something that people may or may not know is, when you go to Walmart or PetSmart or whatever, and when you're checking out, they go like, oh, would you like to donate $1, blah, 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 blah. What they do with that is they do donate that money, but it becomes a tax break for their company. They basically take the thousands or millions of dollars or whatever that they get from those donations, and it's a tax break for them. And that is the purpose of it. And I said, look, all this is, and about Call of Duty 4, going back to that, is I said, look, this is a tax break for Activision. And I said, Activision, I believe they earned last year, it was something in the area of $6 billion.
Oh, they make stupid money. Activision, EA.
Yeah, $6 billion. And I said, literally, and people were jumping on my case about it and saying like, oh, why not let people buy? I said, look, I don't mind if people want to buy a skin pack. That's fine. I don't begrudge you. I buy stupid shit. I mean, I literally sat here and talked about Steelbooks for like 10 minutes at the start of the show. If you want to buy something, I don't begrudge you. Like, there are very few times where I will literally lean across the table and say, you're an idiot for buying that. It's your money. You spend it how you want. But the thing is that video game companies as a whole, though, I don't applaud them when literally, and I made this point, I said, look, I'm not decrying people that want to buy this crap. If you want to, I've bought, like, I'm pretty sure I own the horse armor from Elder Scrolls Oblivion back in the day, okay?
I've bought some really stupid crap. I bought some stupid crap. I've done it, you've done it. Like, if you've played video games for any length of time, you've probably done it. And the thing is, though, is that Activision alone could cut a check to every single homeless veteran in the United States, and I remember I did the math on this, and give them a check for $25,000, and it would only cost them about $1 billion.
and they would still have, $5 billion left. Like, do you think they could survive? Do you think they could make it? I mean, like, why do they need, the charity money from donations from people when they could literally damn near solve the problem themselves?
So the answer is the money is there.
Oh, the money is there.
At least for the big publishers. I mean, to play devil's advocate a little bit, you see what happened with Telltale. Very popular games, and they still went under.
Telltale's problem was, and I've done some reading on Telltale, is that they never upgraded their video game engine. They didn't evolve. They didn't, and I love some of the Telltale games, but they got really stale later on.
If you don't know the Telltale games, they're like the choose your own adventure. Like,
yes.
if you ever got the goosebumps back in the 90s as a kid. Like, choose your own adventure. Walking Dead was their most popular. They did a Guardians of the Galaxy, and the only one of them that I played and really enjoyed was their Batman.
Yeah, I played Telltale. A little bit of Batman. I still need to get the second season of Batman, and then I will pretty much own every Telltale games that they ever put out. The Tales from the Borderlands was good.
Oh,
I
right.
loved... oh God, what is it? The one about the big bad wolf, the Fables.
I know what you're talking about. I forget the name of it.
Oh my God,
yeah.
I can't. Oh, why can't I think about it? Anyway, I loved Telltale back in the day, but I'll be honest with you, is that they fell off really hard. And, there were stories about the mistreatment of their employees, the mismanagement, the lack of direction from
The Wolf Among Us.
The Wolf Among Us. Yes, there it is. Thank you. And, I was looking forward. They were supposed to be doing a sequel to Wolf Among Us 2. And, I love the Fable series, and I've read a lot of the graphic novels from it. But it's, once again, is that, like, Telltale going under isn't a result of them being charitable to their employees or to anything like that. It was a result of them being mismanaged and not
behind
evolving.
the times.
Yeah, and behind the times. Like, there are, like, I played the first episode of a game called The Council, which it's like a choose your own adventure, but it has a lot of stuff in there that is unique and interesting. It has like an RPG element where you're in a conversation with all these historical figures, for example, like George Washington, Napoleon Bonaparte, and such. They all come to this island in the middle of the night, and your character has skills that you can you find stuff that you level up. So if I'm in a conversation with George Washington, for example, I can try and argue mysticism, politics, or whatever. Obviously, if I argue politics, then he'll beat that, and I lose that part of the conversation. So anyway, a company, I don't know who made The Council, but they took the choose your own adventure genre and made it interesting and did something new and fresh with it, which Telltale just did. And Telltale, it was just like if I said, Julian, you can go screw yourself, it's just like, Julian will remember that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And that's all their games really were. And, it's kind of, I'm ashamed to see them go, but.
Well, it's certainly interesting to see after this story and what's happened with BioWare, and to a little bit of a lesser extent, not necessarily on the developer side, but the consumer side with what EA's been doing with loot boxes, and developers actually actively like speaking out against that on Twitter, like what the future is going to hold for, some of these games and a lot for these big developers who push out, these AAA games.
Yeah.
Something definitely needs to change. I think unions are a great idea. Mm-hmm. I think being able to like vent in some kind of way publicly, like you should have the opportunity to tell your story. You're putting your life and soul into these games.
Yeah, so. it's, and I mean, honestly, like, and I'm fully aware of the moral quandary that video game consumers like myself are in, because I don't want people to be, taken advantage of or anything like that. But at the same time, I love video games.
Exactly. Like, yeah.
And like I think the perfect example to that is, I think it's horrific, for example, what's happened with foreign workers in Qatar for the World Cup, that the stadiums that they're building. I will still probably watch the World Cup. I'm a big soccer nerd. So, I mean, it's like I fully am aware of the hypocrisy that I currently sit in, but, once again... It's
but if we weren't consuming, then there'd be no industry.
No, I understand that. But at the end of the day, though, is that, like, consumers should demand change from their industry. Like, they should be saying, like, hey, you need to treat your workers better. But the problem is that we're so disconnected as a society from problems like that, because it's not my problem. I don't know anybody that works in the video game industry. I don't, I don't have anybody who's like, oh man, I just worked a 100-hour work week, and I don't have that personal connect. And a lot of people don't care unless they have that personal connection to that problem, and maybe speaks to us as a society, or but
well, speaking of consumership, we are going to be talking a lot about consumer products on our next episode. Because it'll be our Black Friday episode.
Black Friday, baby.
That's coming up.
I am so looking forward to that.
2 weeks. Until then, we're gonna eat some turkey in between then. Before we wrap up, I was gonna say at the start of the show, and then we got talking about both of our nerdy crazy things that we did this week. I want to say very happy Veterans Day to you, Matt, and thank you for serving our country. Yeah,
I actually it's funny that and it was pure happenstances. Yesterday I actually my friend Rob's little sister Tina, she basically is doing these oral interviews with veterans that she knows, and I don't know where the stuff is going, but basically I did a 3-hour interview about my service, told some stories, gave her some pictures and
Very
such
cool.
like that. So yeah, it's a good thing, and it's a good thing that she and others are doing to kind of preserve the history. And I mean, also I know this is also, I'll just give a quick shout out, even though I know nobody is still alive, but this is the 100-year anniversary of the end of World War I.
Yes, it is. Yep.
So, this is actually, we're about 100 years ago today. The truce that ended the war was about 2 or 3 hours old. So
history.
Yeah.
History. Well, like I said, thank you for your service, and thank you all veterans, anybody who might be listening, for your service as well. We will see you in 2 weeks. Matt will have some crazy thing that he bought.
I will have some crap I bought, I'm sure.
Until then, this has been episode 7 of Everything is Permitted. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good night.
Fire rocket to the moon, fire plane to the rocket.